But here we are for the second episode. Hope you enjoyed the first one. This is number 2. How's it going today?
Good.
A little more excited for this one than you were for the first one?
Yeah. Got that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
More, 20% more, 300% more.
I was going to go like 5, but we'll go with 10.
Okay, good. Today, we'll talk a little bit more about sort of the in-depth behind the scenes of our business. But before we get to that, last time we talked, we touched on, the things that we do, why we do the things that we do. But just to give those people that don't know us, that don't know anything about running a marketing agency in particular, why don't you go over real quick again what we do, for whom we do it, and why we chose to do the things that we do and maybe not others that we could do.
Yeah. So kind of the easiest one to tackle is we work with small and medium-sized businesses that can't necessarily afford the budget of working with either like a high-end boutique agency or a huge marketing firm, but still need marketing help and still need very, specific strategy, and being able to have somebody that can read the data on the back end and make adjustments. So that's kind of who we do it for. What we do is everything from brand creation to SEO, copy, social, kind of the whole gamut. I have 12 plus years experience in marketing, so we have a wealth of talent that we are able to tap into from like a freelancer perspective. If we need a huge design lift, we have somebody that we can use for that. If we need photo and video, we have, people that we can lean on with that each have their own special strengths. So we're really able to offer everything, but our core strengths are website design, SEO, social media, and then kind of some of like the left field things like monetizing on Pinterest or, Amazon affiliate links and those sort of things. Those kind of ways to bring in that extra revenue that a lot of small businesses just don't think of.
Great. Now, if you are a small business and you come in and you would like to work with us, do we give them everything?
No.
No, why not?
We do not, because not everybody needs everything.
Okay.
And you can't, there's so many things out there that, you can do. Like, let's just use Google Ads, for example. Google Ads, if done well, can be a great tool and very beneficial. But if you don't have a good website, if you don't have strong SEO copy, if you just don't have that organic side of it, then your Google Ads are going to fail.
Right.
So we take the approach of not everybody needs everything all at once.
Okay.
So if we have a new client that comes on, we just onboarded a new client the other day, that maybe in about 6 months, Google Ads will be a great opportunity for them. But right now, it's just throwing money into the wind for them since they don't have the organic side of it done yet.
Right. So Google Ads, for those that are watching it aren't familiar with it, you pay for your business to show up on Google for particular keywords. Mm-hmm. And then people pay, or we pay, depending on click behavior, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if your website is not strong, people will immediately bounce. Yeah. But you will have, as the client, already paid for the click, right? Yeah. So that's really one of the downsides, as you're saying, if the website is then not nice enough organically to really lead people through the funnel, we'd be given something to a client that is perhaps not necessary. Mm-mm. Good. So cool. So switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to make sure that the people that are watching have a good understanding again of what we do. We did already talk about how we got here. So if you're interested, watch the last step. So taking a little bit of a closer look at the way that we work, right? So obviously, not only do we work together, but we also happen to be married.
We do. We are.
Yes. So from your perspective, how have we been able and how are we able to maintain that balance between, being romantically involved, one might call it, and also working together in this capacity?
So this was a struggle for us.
Okay.
And I think it comes from both of our backgrounds, where I've come from kind of drawing a hard line at not killing myself while working, and based off of like past employment. And I think you have potentially, since you're a professor, you're always on call. since you don't have office hours. So I think in the beginning it was hard for us because you had that always on call mentality, and I was like, no, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I want my coffee.
I do like to work at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I know. So I think that we've gotten better at kind of setting those no work zones. Like when we go out to lunch or to dinner, we have that hard rule of we don't talk about our child, we don't talk about work, it's just us, which I think has been really helpful. And then at night, after our son goes to bed, unless there's something we're working on, if there's something urgent or, there's always exceptions. But we've gotten better about not bringing work into our, unwinding time and that kind of thing, which I think has been really helpful, at least for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I also think that it was interesting to accept and appreciate one another in previously unknown facets and roles, because your previous work self to me was just something I would observe as a bystander, as a spectator, right? So we'd be like, okay, you'd be in your office and I'd walk by and you'd be on a call and you'd have the Emily work hat on. It's like, oh, that's cool, like that's what my wife sounds like when she's telling somebody to get something done. Or roles reversed, I'd be on a Zoom call, I'd be recording a lecture, and you have said this to me previously, right, where you'd be like, oh yeah, that's right, that's what he sounds like when he's in like intelligent academia teacher mode. So I think it was a bit of a struggle to merging those as like active participants, right, where now those were things that were directed at each other. And we weren't necessarily just observing the other person enacting a role that otherwise wasn't really like affecting us. It was like I can get kind of like teachy sometimes, right? Because I am a professor. So like my default mode is like explanation and like walking people through things, which isn't always like the way to go about things in like a business setting. Like a decision has been made and then you like go about your way or whatever it might be. That was definitely something to learn, but then also to figure out, right?
100%.
Okay, so now with this balance, is there something that you have learned about yourself or me or us as a couple that you didn't know previously before we start working together?
Oh gosh. Well, I think with the balance thing, I think when people strive for balance, it's misleading.
Right.
Because there is no real work-life balance. Like there are some days when I work more and, maybe spend less time, with our son when he gets home or vice versa. So I think just like over the years being more like adaptable to what, quote unquote balance is for that day or that week or that month or whatever. So running our own business where we have full control for me has been a learning curve because I've been working from home for, well before 2020.
Right.
It was 2017.
Yeah.
But I've always had my hours that I had to be available. I had to be at my computer. So I think having kind of this extra freedom has been a learning curve, where if I want to stay up late because I can't sleep, I can work. If I get up early and I want to get something done, so I have time to go grab lunch or something. So that's been a learning curve. I think learning with you and our hours of like most productivity aren't the same.
No, they're not. When
I am like hitting my stride and I am in like full like don't talk to me, like I'm getting stuff done mode. When you're relaxing, you're having lunch, because you started at 3 o'clock in the morning,
right,
when I want to sleep till 5 and then work out. And so I think just like learning and being okay with the fact that like we're not productive at the same time, and that's okay.
Right.
Everything still gets done.
So you bring up the control over the time, which I think for somebody looking in at this from the outside, or generally speaking, founding their own company, starting their own business, being entrepreneurs, is that carrot that always gets kind of dangled, right? It's like, hey, that cliche, like sit on a beach with your laptop and whatever it might be, drink cool drinks with an umbrella in it. Have you found yourself having to sort of actively monitor yourself? Because for me, certainly there's been a little bit of this sort of like, well, I can work whenever I want. Ergo, I pretty much work 24/7. So how has that like played out for you?
caused more stress and anxiety than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like I'm very, at this point, like hard boundaries with things. So for me, it would be like, I got everything done. It's 2:00. Then, from 2 to 5:30 or whatever, I'm monitoring emails and, have my phone with me or whatever. But then I feel kind of useless.
Yeah.
Because I may have started earlier that day or, for whatever number of reasons. So I think that caused me a lot of stress. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing enough, that kind of thing, even though everything was done and getting done.
Yeah.
So I think that's in my learning curve. I think the fallacy of life will be better, not life, work will be significantly better. Work will be less stressful if you own your own company. I don't think is true. I mean, obviously having control over our own time is wonderful, and not being beholden to a certain number of vacation days is fantastic. But also we work on the weekend. You work, you're always at your computer. So there is a lot of flexibility and freedom, but I don't think it's what people outside looking in think it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a trap that you can fall into, right? Just because you can, you will.
Yeah.
Especially if you are like us, the two of us are responsible for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So technically speaking, in the abstract, there's always something that could be tinkered with or that could be optimized, or even that just could get like worked on ahead of time, right? Where it's like, I think it's difficult to really find that spot where you're like, okay, like I'm done. Like I did what was supposed to get done. It doesn't matter if it's 1:30. Right. I will say though, despite all of this, then being able to, in fact, carve out the moment, right? When Connor comes home, like we're there. When it's time for Connor to practice German with me, I make that time. So, you might still end up working a lot, which, this whole notion of like work 2 hours a day and sell like a template somewhere, that's, BS anyway. So you're still going to end up working.
Right.
It's just, you get to pick your own stress and you get to pick your own problems. I think that's really what it boils down to, right? Where I definitely, I have not found like my way to just lying in a hammock all day and taking naps while making money. But it is way more fun than I could ever imagine being on somebody else's clock.
I agree.
And like being the recipient of somebody else's problems that I'm like not responsible for and or can't even solve. Definitely, that's been a big thing. So obviously, so you mentioned boundaries, you mentioned setting up things that we kind of try, sometimes fail to put in place, no work talk, etc., etc., etc. How do we manage work disagreements, that is, or like differing opinions, how to go about things?
I think it's still something you and I are navigating.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten better. I can be a little brash and not meaning to be. Like there's just kind of like emotion has been taken. Like if you show me something and you want my opinion, I could say like, oh, it's cool, but let's, try this or that or whatever. And sometimes it comes across, I think, a little, I don't say aggressive, but there's just void of emotion, which then I think puts you on, kind of like, whoa, what's happening? So I think communicating like more of, okay, this is how it came out. Is that what you mean? And I know something I do, and this is just years of kind of it being beaten into me, is like start with something good and then like the compliment sandwich kind of.
Drives me crazy.
Which drives you nuts. But it's been one of those things that's been kind of like beaten into me over my professional life of doing that. So I think learning not to do that, I think has been like the biggest kind of thing between the two of us. And just like taking a moment to ask, because we do have the marriage side of it, which we both understand how to communicate. And so then all of a sudden when that communication strategy is so different,
right,
I think for both of us, it's a little bit of a like, wait, hold on. Do you mean it this way? Like your tone is this, the words coming out of your mouth are that. Which is it?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. For me, definitely, I'm a tone person. I'm not a content person.
Right.
Right. Like I take the content of any feedback in stride. Like that's not the problem, but I'm very much a tone person. And the other thing, I'm very much I am allergic to wasting time person. So you just kind of like hinted at it. But like one of the things that sometimes happen is like I'll do something with a website, or we'll do a design piece or whatever it might be, and I'll show it to you, and you say it looks great, and then we move on with life. And then either 15 minutes later or an hour later, you actually come around to saying that there are like 5 things you want to change about it. And so that's sort of like that, I think, that other side of the coin, right? Where like that's not helpful, but it's also, I think, something that, can just be sort of like taken on as, like not wanting to hurt the other person's feelings.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like one of the more interesting ones, I think, where it's like, as long as you tell me with a smile that something looks like garbage, then that's cool.
Right.
But I need to just know.
I think that, like, for that one too, I do that. I think for me, whenever I look at something, if it's something that like you're showing me, like it's not done, like, what do you think? And then I'll give you feedback because I know it's rough.
Right.
When things are kind of like finalized, this is not just you, this has been me my entire life. I need time to like ruminate on it.
Yeah.
Because I can have like an initial like, oh, this looks great, or oh, I like this, or whatever it is. And then it's like I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, you know what? Now that I'm thinking on it more, like thinking about a whole big picture. So I think that's, part of the other thing.
Gotcha.
With it looks great, and then walking away, and then 15 minutes later,
it looks
I
great.
have a checklist of 10 things that need to change.
Hey, by the way, the thing that looked great actually is not so great after all, right? Do we ever? I guess we do, but can you recall something or a time that we like truly like disagreed on like a business agency thing?
I'm sure we have.
I'm having a hard time. I think, which is a good thing, and I think kind of goes to show, one can disagree on tactics, but one should probably make sure not to disagree on strategy when going in business, with another person. I think big picture wise, you and I, are pretty much always on the same page, right? I mean, sometimes, we kind of take different stabs at what turns out to be the same thing.
Yeah. Which I think mirrors our brain, because I'm very like straight line A to B.
Right.
Like, let's get there. That's the goal. And you're more like A1. I mean, we've had this conversation probably 100 times.
Yeah.
So I think just how we approach anything is just always a little bit different. I would say I think that probably the only times, and I don't even call them fights, but the days that we're both kind of at each other's throats more in the professional setting is because something from our marriage has bled over.
Right. Or just like other stuff.
Yeah, or a million other things that are going on in life.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever just been like a work, disagreement or argument.
Which I wonder, because normal people, right, also bring those things into work.
Yeah.
So then, which makes me wonder, if you're a boss and you have a dispute with your spouse and you bring that to work and you take it out on your employee, I wonder if it's easier or more difficult for the two people that also already know the origin of the problem to then kind of like realize, okay, this is what's going on, or if that makes it even worse. I don't have an answer, but what do you think?
I don't know. I think it probably makes it worse.
Okay.
Because I think so I'm just thinking of like an agency I used to work for. I had like my 2 people that 3 that we were kind of on a team together, different roles. And if something happened in like personal life that I would be like annoyed or angry about, I would kind of have them to be like, and not in like an overly like where it becomes unprofessional, but like we all kind of had like our little tells,
right,
of like, okay, she's annoyed or frustrated, it probably has nothing to do with me, or whatnot. And I think it's important to always have people in your life, both professionally and personally, that you can vent to.
Yeah.
Where you can just kind of let it all out. It doesn't leave that area. And so for you, like, you are my person in 95% of my life that I will go and I will vent to about anything. But I can't vent to you about work things when I want to vent about you.
Right. Yeah, because I am, or you are, 99% of the time as much part of the solution as we are part of the problem.
Exactly.
Right? You can't like turn to a third party at work to become part of the solution.
Right.
Interesting. It is challenging, but it's also very rewarding.
It is.
It also, I will say, I wouldn't suggest going into business with a spouse as a means to support, reaffirm, or save an otherwise floundering relationship. Right? So it's kind of like, people that have kids to save their marriage.
Right.
Don't do that. This really only works if the foundation of the romantic involvement, right, is sound, and you can live with those moments where you clearly are taking each other's issues out on each other, not only like in real life, but then also at work.
Right.
So this really should only be sought out by people that have their marriage life squared away and not add additional stress onto it. So now, obviously, it's not everything, or not everything is smooth sailing all the time. And you just brought up the fact that, you work a lot, I work a lot, we're sort of always on. It's a challenge to, make sure that we take those times not to be thinking about work. Are there specific things that you do to turn your work brain off? Tips, tricks, strategies, tactics. We're covering all the bases. Personal development, whatever it is.
If I'm really stressed out, I have to move my body.
Okay.
Just whether it's taking the dog out in the backyard and throwing the frisbee or the tennis ball for 15 minutes, or going for a walk, or this probably sounds kind of funny, but like going to get my nails done. Like going to do something that is just kind of all for me.
Yeah.
That it's not, obviously throwing the tennis ball for Tango helps him and the rest of us at home, but doing something that could be turned into like almost being selfish for an hour helps me turn my brain off, and making sure that I'm carving out time for myself to work out. Like ever since I started working out at 6 instead of 8, I think our whole mornings have just been a lot smoother.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where even Connor is like, did you feel better now after I work out?
Yeah, for sure.
I think being okay with taking some time just to like be selfish, doing it for you,
yeah,
I think has been hugely beneficial.
It's interesting. Because one of my unhealthiest habits probably is when I'm frustrated with work, I work.
Right.
Which is kind of cool because at least my productivity doesn't drop just because I'm pissed off about something.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think it's because I have like a deeply ingrained aversion to escapism.
Yeah.
Where I dread that feeling of like turning to something else to, pull me out of a bad mood. So then I just like work on something else, or work more, or, do something else. I will also admit though that my like me times are so built into my days where those aren't even up for negotiation, which then also means though they aren't up for grabs when it's time to like make me feel better. Like when something happens at 1:37 p.m., I will have meditated already. I will have worked out already. I will have had my healthy lunch and my 45-minute doggy walk.
Yeah.
What's left to do? Work. Right? But which is kind of interesting because it also then serves as a bit of a distraction for me at least. So moving the body.
I mean, to the point where like I would have bad meetings, hard meetings, rough meetings, whatever word you want to use. And I would have coworkers be like, do you need to go for a walk before we recap? Like, yes, I do.
Like back when you worked in an agency?
Take a 15-minute walk, come back, send out a Zoom link before I could like constructively deload from, recap from a meeting.
Would you say that you are good at compartmentalizing?
No. I'm good at putting blinders on.
Okay.
I'm good at putting my head down and just ignoring the rest of the world around me to get what I need to get done.
Yeah.
But I am not good at no, I'm not good. I have to work through something to like move it to the back of my brain. I can't just be like, situation A is doing this, it's frustrating, but not think about it and go to situation B or something like that. That's
interesting.
Blinders, aspects of my life. I'm good at that, for better or worse.
It's true. Because it's, again, something that we're so different in, right? Where I almost exist in this, like, multiverse.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right? Where it's like, hey, A is doing this, and, like, B is doing this over here, and I'm actively working on C, and D might be kind of cropping up, but it's not sort of like actively being paid attention to. So that's interesting,
Yeah.
how different we are that way. So let's talk a little bit about motivation.
Okay.
Motivation, discipline, are they the same? Are they different? But obviously, we're busy.
Yeah, very.
We're very busy. There's always something to do. There's always, even now with the client roster that we have, obviously, at the end of the day, you always want to be in a position that you could take on the next one or two clients, right? Because obviously, it's a cash flow question. It's a question of making sure the business is running efficiently, given the resources that we have. So this obviously takes work. It takes attention. It takes time. How do you stay motivated, driven, disciplined, whatever you want to call it, if there are different, how do you stay kind of like on target?
I think that motivation and discipline are very different. I think you need motivation to build a habit of discipline, but half the days I wake up, I'm not motivated to come into my office and log onto my computer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it has to be done. I am a very rewards-driven person.
Okay.
And I think that was originally like my motivation. And I don't mean like rewards and like going out to buy something. I mean like I'm going to set a timer for 90 minutes, get these 15 things done. If I get them done, I'm going to go eat a Reese's peanut butter cup or something. But so I think they're very different. I think motivation, when you're motivated, you should really lean into that to create the habit of whatever you're trying to do. And then from that habit becomes discipline. So yeah, I think they're completely different. I think the fact that I am very able to put blinders on and, for better or worse, just kind of ignore the rest of the world around me, and just kind of like put my head in the sand and just get things done, I think is what feeds my discipline. But I'm sure that started from just a motivation of being scared to fail at my first job. And that's how like the discipline of, working and all that was built.
All right. Do you think it helps that we chose this life? Like we're sort of the ones picking and choosing the things that we have to be motivated for, have to be disciplined for, or is this something that can be applied everywhere?
I think it can be applied anywhere. I think that when there is a direct positive outcome that can come from your behavior,
yeah,
I think that makes it just light years easier to create the discipline around. Whether it's, like working out, because I want to be able to, play with our son, or, it's work because this is our livelihood. So I think when you have like that direct positive outcome, you're not just like a piece in a puzzle. I think it's easier, but I think that it all matters like how you frame it in your own brain. Whether you frame it in a positive way or a negative way, I think really will dictate, how that motivation comes and then how that turns into the habit of discipline.
Right. Yeah, I think it also, and there's many different approaches to it. To me, what's been super helpful is anchoring my behavior in like the way that I see myself. So like I'm just somebody who gets stuff done.
Right.
Like that's a reflection of me as a human. So if I say A, I'm going to do A. That's just who I am, as a person, husband, father, man, whatever it might be, right? But there's obviously like a feedback loop.
Right.
You can't just say you're something you're not. So there needs to be a bit of a feedback loop, I think, too, where you have to kind of like prove yourself or prove to yourself that you are capable of doing something. And then at some point, right, you just like make that part of your identity. So that's kind of been the way for me. So last question, well, second to last question. So there's a lot of questions here. So when you look ahead a little bit, obviously one always dreams, one thinks about the future, one, has these ideas in one's head about, where to take the business. Are there specific milestones, goals, visions that right now, as we're about a year into the business, that you have?
I think from a capacity standpoint, we could take on one, maybe two more clients. Obviously, I would love to get those 1-2 clients. I think from there, I would like to be able to grow into more of I want to say nuclear agency, but that's not right. But where we have somebody that is just running social, or, you know, we have kind of where we can fully employ, we're at the place where we can fully employ somebody to do social, somebody to do kind of some other thing. I think that's probably my long-term goal. I mean, we've hit my biggest milestone with this was this for us to be profitable, and for us to be able to be like sustained financially with the agency. We've hit that.
Right.
So I think the next goal would be just being able to hire people to help take off some of that workload.
Yeah, it's growing to the point where we wouldn't be able to do as well for our clients as we have been able to do on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like paradoxical, where you want to like grow yourself almost to the point of failure, and then you can say, okay, well, somebody else, might be taking over certain things that are, perhaps not the best, skill set or personality or preference fit, right? Although I will say, I did not expect the work that we do day in and day out to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Just like preference and like personality and affinity wise, right? That's been a cool experience, because before starting this agency, that's not something I ever thought about. Right. And then turns out like I love copywriting, I love SEO stuff, I love web design and doing all that stuff. So that's been kind of cool. And we talked about this briefly, I think, in the last episode too, right? Where it's like, you might not even know what you like and what you're good at. And, I wouldn't necessarily suggest taking out a $150,000 loan for a franchise to find this out, but putting yourself in a position where you have to deliver certain things for somebody else and forcing yourself into learning things that then might turn out to be something that you really enjoy and that are good like skill set fits.
Yeah.
I think that's been a really cool experience just from, founding the agency and running the business. Just kind of like learning new things, developing new things. So,
sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I think it's also important to be able to look at your skill sets that you currently have and thinking of potentially like unusual ways to apply those.
Right.
Like you love to tinker. That is you love just fiddling with things in all aspects of your life.
Right.
So it makes sense that you like tinkering with websites. But that wasn't something that we really realized until we started building websites. And like for you, you're an amazing academic writer. So that skill carries over to, how to work in SEO words so it sounds normal and like it's not being stuffed and that sort of thing. So I think just being able to like look at current skills and then apply them to something you're interested in and not always finishing starting from zero.
Yeah.
Or from,
Yeah. And also putting yourself in a position where, if you want to run a certain type of business, just realizing, okay, well, certain things will just have to be done. You position yourself as somebody who can deliver those things, and then it's just up to you to figure it out, how to learn it.
Right.
And if push comes to shove, you can always outsource it, right? Especially, as you mentioned earlier, you have connections, you have contacts in the marketing world, but that's also something I would, kind of single out as an overarching sort of like entrepreneurship lesson.
Yeah.
Say you'll do something and then figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And, if you truly can't deliver it, figure out a way to then deal with that. But more often than not, I think you'll be able to figure out, okay, how exactly am I going to make this work?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. So we are right now in April 2025, April 2nd, 2025. So we got the big vision out of the way. What's something fun to look forward to for the next 4 to 8 weeks on the business side to finalize our episode for today?
So we've gotten a couple new clients recently that we've just started onboarding. So I think kind of the biggest push for them is to really get the big heavy lifting stuff done. And then streamline the process. Whenever you onboard a new client, it's always a labor of love.
Right.
But then getting it down and streamlining the process. And there's some just internal stuff, that only you and I see that I definitely want to like figure out how to make it easier. Just kind of like the admin stuff that drive both of us a little bit crazy. And we've got Monday, which has been helping.
Yeah.
You need an organizational tool Monday. But there's some other stuff that I just want to kind of streamline.
It's crazy how easy it is to fall into this sort of like mom and pop shop trap of like, oh yeah, like we could just like tell each other what to do. I mean, we like live in the same house. If something needs to be done, you just like call from one home office up to the other and just like tell the other person. But truly, again, a lesson for anybody who's like trying to start out either alone or with somebody else. Professionalizing certain things, especially when it comes to workflow, really is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You can kind of like be the cool person and like do things differently and like be laid back in some ways compared to like a super agency or whatever, or, you know, compared if you run like an independent bookstore compared to an Amazon. But I do think when it comes to just workflow and admin processes, that's probably the area where you have the greatest loss of energy and the greatest loss of just by falling into this belief that you can just like wing that when it's really those seemingly trivial processes that should be professionalized the most.
Yeah, 100%.
Because otherwise you're going to spend 80% of your time on the stuff that does not move the needle at all. That's just going to drive you crazy. Literally the day that we got Monday, I mean, we're two people.
Yeah.
One might wonder why the heck we need Monday.
Right.
But complete game changer. Complete game changer. There is like, we don't have to ask these other questions anymore. Nothing needs to be confirmed or restated or gone over 3 times.
Yep.
It's in Monday once. It gets moved around, you know, either from you to me or me to you and then to the client and back, whatever the process might be.
Yeah.
And it's just so streamlined, so easy. Yeah, if you're starting out, streamline the things that you think should not be streamlined at all.
And I think it's okay too to be able to admit when something's not.
For sure.
Like a process is not working. Like if we get to the point where all of a sudden Monday's not working for us anymore, you know, it's okay, find something new. So I do think that some companies get so stuck in how they do it, and that's what's comfortable.
Yeah.
That they don't want to see anything else.
Right.
Where I think it's important to always keep that open mind. I mean, like our Excel document was kind of working. I mean, we're getting everything done, but it was also this kind of like, is everything there? Where is stuff? An Excel document has like 900 links now in it, and so I was like, I think we should go to Monday.
Yeah.
So, and I think just, you know, being okay with admitting what you're doing is not working.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, everything is a tool. So it's up to the person handling the tools to pick the appropriate instrument for the job at hand.
Oh, 100%.
Could I, punch a nail in the wall with a screwdriver? Yeah, I could. So I'd rather go get a hammer. Can I drill a screw in the wall with my hand? Technically, might as well get the power drill.
Right.
So yeah, you can definitely kind of like fall in love, I think, with stuff, and then try to make the thing fit the purpose rather than just looking at what you're trying to achieve and then picking the right tool for the trade.
Definitely. And understanding that it might take, 4 hours to organize and set up your Google Drive, but then for the next 3 months, it's going to save you 50 hours. I think just like being okay and investing that time up front to save time later and that kind of cost, I think is always important.
Yeah. Which anecdotally, and I have absolutely no evidence for this, I think the average person is terrible at realizing that.
Oh, yeah.
That the 2 hours that you're dreading right now will save you 200 hours over the next 4 weeks. And I see that with students, right, that don't want to spend the 30 minutes, the 60 minutes or whatever to, figure out how to, at least at a basic proficiency level, use like Canva.
Yeah.
Or even when I was a student myself, there were people in my master's cohort that had never opened an Excel spreadsheet before. And it's like, okay, cool, you don't have to be a wizard at this.
Right.
But like, sit down, take 2 hours, do like some YouTube tutorial, get some basic understanding of like the 10, 15 most commonly used Excel formulas and tips and tricks will probably save you years down the line. But nobody wants to sit down and invest the 2 hours in something that they think they might never actually get back or use, or they think that there's something like more urgent going on at the time.
Exactly. And even like, I think too is people look at their time spent as either like black and white, either it was a success or a failure. But like, let's say we'll use Monday as an example. Let's say we set up Monday and we decided, you know what, Monday's not working. Our Excel document was really, that's the way to go for us.
Right.
That's not time, to me, that's not time lost.
No.
That's just now saying, okay, I can check this off of my brain since I can't compartmentalize, and not think about it ever again, and know that the way we're doing it now is the right way.
Right. Great. I think that is about it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a thing or two, and we'll be back with number 3 soon. Take it easy, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. What you think?
That was good. I turned this off.